I guess it doesn't really turn on. It's just the power by.
It's powered by the thing here, so you shouldn't have to turn anything on.
I shouldn't have to, but if I want to.
If you do, turn on your lady.
Different episode.
It's a different episode.
Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. We are here for another podcast. Very exciting podcast today, although I say that every time.
Right, yeah. You say that every time.
But it is exciting every time. To me, I mean, it's like everything's new. You know, it's like being a parent. Every single day is different. Every single day is new. Today we have a special guest. Scott Kilian is a certified financial planner. I will let him introduce himself, but to give you a little background, here in our meetup group in Encinitas, the Dudes to Dads meetup group, Scott's been a fairly constant contributor, participating in the meetups, and then as well, he's a certified financial planner, as I said. So tonight's meetup, we actually talked about financial aspects of parenting, and a lot of it, applies to anybody in any situation. It's just smart stuff to know.
Yeah.
But as it relates to parents, these are some things that we found were really valuable, and so I asked Scott to come on in and kind of share with us some of these things. So first, Scott, why don't you say hello and at least introduce yourself, and we'll sort of start from there.
Yeah, hello everybody, and it's really great to be here. I, as Jason mentioned, I am a certified financial planner. I am a dad first and a financial planner second.
Nice.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen a lot, and I'm happy to talk about some things hopefully to help everybody navigate the waters of parenthood financially.
Awesome.
Right on. Which is a big topic.
No, it is. It is. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people when they're first getting married, it's sort of this. That's a big step, and there's a lot of financial changes. A lot of times people get jobs, they buy a house, they, all these different things, and then when you have this child, you're like, whoa! All of a sudden, there's a little bit more expenses.
Yeah, but even before that, though, I mean, getting
the change
married,
from dude to dad.
Yeah,
from
dude to dad. But I
parent,
mean, when you people get married, it's their first shot at responsibility.
True.
Exactly.
Kids and financial,
Yeah, I mean, you, as a dude, you're only responsible for yourself. All you really care about is spending money on yourself.
Right.
And it
speaking.
becomes a little bit more difficult. So Scott had a couple of things I wanted to share. We kind of, let's call them, 5 tips. It's not like these are the only tips, but, these are 5 really important things that I think parents kind of have to do. Maybe that's the best way of saying it. They really just kind of have to look at these things and say, wow. Say wowie. Say wowie.
Wowie?
Wowie.
So these are 5 things that I think parents need to look at. As I said, everybody can benefit from this, but really when you are a parent, you need to look at these things. So the first one we have is what, Scott? What was the first thing we had talked about?
Well, it's funny. The first thing I think is the one thing on here that is actually a non-financial financial tip, and that's just simply you really have to have a commitment from both of the adults in the relationship to do the financial planning together.
Okay. This is the commitment. Just that commitment is sort of the first tip.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You have to, and commitment is not just okay, that sounds great, go ahead and do it, and I support whatever you say. It's no, I buy into the philosophy. I'm going to not only, I'll participate. Both make effort.
Yeah.
Both switch roles, being the personal CFO for the family.
You had mentioned that in our meetup. That was really interesting. So, and maybe, to share with Alan is, he was talking about the idea of switching, because a lot of the guys in the meetup were sitting there talking, going, "Oh, who does the finances?" And it's either my wife or I do it, and saying actually switching those roles for like 3 months. So you say, okay, for 3 months, I'm going to do it. Now for 3 months, you do it. And what was the reason for that?
Well, the biggest reason is that what if the primary person that does it is no longer around? Then you're going to be in a situation where there's a death or something that happened. Things are going to get a little hectic and frenetic. You have kids and you're not thinking right. Family, friends are not going to be able to help you because they're not privy to your situation.
And that's even the extreme situation.
Absolutely.
I mean, sick or out of town for business.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most probably the most probable or the biggest reason would be just so that you both know what's going on.
Well, the biggest reason is just to buy into the philosophy. And I think somebody at the group mentioned it too. You could put the trump card down later saying that, well, nobody can say that they didn't know what they're supposed to be doing.
Nobody was blindsided, and all of a sudden you say,
absolutely.
"Oh, I was not aware. He was the one doing it all," or vice versa. She was the one who handles that. So hey, I don't know what's going on.
That's right.
There's really no excuse, I guess.
There's no excuse. There's no excuse. And to give yourself to sit down and actually commit to doing this, it gives your family every chance of success. So don't do something that's going to sabotage yourself right out of the gate.
How do you think you actually take action on that commitment? So, I mean, is it writing an agreement? Is it, I think you had said somebody might want to write a mission statement or something like that.
Yeah, for the people it depends on how you live your life and how your family lives their life. How do you best execute on something? That's what we're talking about here. It's not just the commitment, but it's actually doing it. So if you like to write lists and put it up on the refrigerator, then that's what needs to happen. If you can sit down and have a brief talk, look, we're doing this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and that's fine.
Fist bump?
Yeah, fist bump, and
hey, hon.
Yeah, the Top Gun, the high five, low five, and bada boom, bada bing.
No, that's cool. No, that's awesome. So, yeah, that is, and that's probably the biggest hurdle. I mean,
it is
simply the commitment and the willingness to both.
Without a doubt, if the commitment's not there, then the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Is this agreeing on the actual strategy, or just you're not even there yet?
It's broad strokes. It's agreeing that, look, this is what we're doing in general. There could be some debt. There could be something that happens. We want to make sure that we accomplish X, Y, and Z. And here's how we're going to conduct ourselves financially. It's going to go into the spending. It's going to go into what we're saving for. It's going to go into the decisions that we make for our kids and what we want to do.
Okay.
And, yeah, like you said before, this is the first time that people are going to have to actually involve somebody else and make a decision, not only for themselves as now a unit, but now for their kids, somebody that's going to be with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and you have to plan for their future.
You absolutely do.
They're not bringing in income at this point.
No, you are, and it's all on you.
Superstar.
Awesome.
Which everybody is, right?
Of course.
So, and so moving on to the next sort of the next item or the next tip, you mentioned, you said get the cash flow in check. I guess I kind of interpret this as, doing a budget. Is that the right way?
That's true. Once you get the commitment, the buy-in, then you're ready to move on to something a little bit more specific, which is addressing the cash flow. And not only the cash flow, but one of the things that I mentioned tonight was building your own personal financial statements, looking at what a balance sheet looks like, your net worth, your assets and liabilities, and also looking at what your cash flow statement, what the money coming in and the money going out. If you do that, you can make some really good decisions that aren't rocket science that will help right the ship if there is a ship to be righted.
The thing a lot of people listening will be like, oh, that's so intimidating. They don't like numbers. They don't like dealing. I mean, the whole point of, putting your automation to your bills, it's like out of sight, out of mind. I don't even want to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. And yet, this is important to do, and for many people it doesn't rise to the level of importance to actually take action. So during the commitment talk, the result of that will be this now rises to the level. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what are some ways that people can make a budget? I mean, is it simply just an Excel spreadsheet?
It certainly can be, and there's been a big business out there of actually creating software and applications on your smartphone.
I've heard of a couple.
Mint is one. There's actually one too that we didn't talk about. That it's called, it was just a different way of thinking about it. It's called You Need a Budget. And basically what that does is it assigns a dollar to a goal, whereas Mint is more of a rear view mirror. Here's what you've done.
Right.
The You Need a Budget is actually assigns it to a goal. And that's helpful. It's counterintuitive, but it works.
Yeah. I like that idea, actually, of having it kind of set to a goal, because then you kind of have something in mind, and then you're constantly thinking about those things.
Absolutely.
I work a lot better in that context.
Sure, yeah.
Well, so Alan, not putting you on the spot, but
let's do it.
Do you have a budget?
I'm leaving.
Do you have a budget?
I do now. I didn't a long time ago, and not that long ago, where I would basically a spendthrift. Like I didn't think about where my money was going.
Right.
But now that I'm making a salary where I can actually plan a budget.
Right. When you're in a committed relationship.
Yeah, a committed relationship. Just trying to be smarter as I get older. You know, like I know that I'm not going to live forever, and I need to plan for retirement and that type of thing. And don't get me wrong, I still have that kind of disposable income mentality, especially now that I actually
we'll
make
get to
more.
that. We're going to talk about
it's funny how
I can go out to restaurants. I'll buy it. I'll buy the next round.
It's funny how the budget comes into play when the committed relationship is now right there too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, for sure. Well, and I was kind of the same way. I had done okay, and so I just was like, oh well, there's money there, and let's not worry about it. And as time goes on, and realizing, right, with the kids and the things that they need and my family needs and stability and those kinds of things, we're now going through it. I mean, my wife and I are actually going through the process of establishing the budget, and I can tell you it's not easy.
No, it's not
an easy process.
And the thing too to realize is it's not just looking at what you're doing and assigning a category to that. You may need to add categories like savings, for instance.
Right.
Savings is huge.
Or vacation.
And it must vacation. And with kids, no matter what stage of development your kid is in, whether it's daycare or whether it's full-blown school, then you have the activities, and you have all these other things. Those things need to have a place in that budget so that it's not a surprise or a shock really when they come up.
Yeah, or at least a reservoir for the unforeseen.
Absolutely.
I was actually pretty impressed. We had a decent amount of guys at this meetup tonight, and a majority of them have budgets.
Yeah.
And it was cool. I mean, it was cool to see sort of, and it was actually quite surprising. They say, oh no, I live by a budget and I have this and my wife does this and I do this. I mean, it was pretty interesting of that. I don't know if that's the norm or not.
No, it absolutely isn't the norm.
I mean, you deal with this all the time.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is not the norm. We actually dealt with
it.
If it was the norm. It was funny to see every single hand raised, and I do it, and that's fine. That's great, and that's where people should be. But it's definitely not the norm.
So maybe is it saying that people who are into dudes to dads or that approach are a little bit more proactive with
people that care about parenting? They from every.
Yeah, that's a good way.
We'll do another one called Deadbeat Dads later.
Yeah.
Deadbeat to dad or deadbeat to dude?
Dad to deadbeat.
No, that's cool. That's very cool. So now here's a big one. This is the third sort of tip, or the third element, I should say. You talk about debt. Regardless of whether you're single or married or not, debt is the killer. And as a parent and as raising a family, it's the last thing you want to be in is debt.
Yeah, and a lot of times you inherit debt with relationships too. So
Right.
you get married.
So it's part of the agreement when you're going through and about to get married. Of course, that's one of the questions. Do you have any debt?
Do you have your debt? Of course, yeah. That's what you do.
I'd like to see your balance sheet.
Absolutely. And I'm sure everybody does that. So they've got that covered before actually pulling the trigger on marriage. But yes,
I went to USC, so yeah.
Well, it's almost like what are those things? The Q.
Magic 8 Ball.
No, the scanner. Like you can the QR code. That somebody you walk up to them like if you're single and you actually look at their QR code like nope, forget it. They've got too much debt.
They can have that watch.
She's really attractive, but whoa, too much debt. Yeah.
Well, the thing with debt is that, as you said, Jason, it is the single most thing that will kill any progress that you make with anything. There is very little productive debt that is out there. A mortgage might be arguably one of those productive forms of debt because you get a tax benefit from it, but the things about credit cards and student loan debt, these things just accumulate, and it really puts a damper on that. Interest doesn't help you out in any way. So
what are some ways then that people can approach that debt and getting rid of that debt? I mean, we talked, Michael, who's been in here with another one of our podcasts, he talked about how when he was single, he was in debt and he read a couple of different books and took a class and then ultimately got on the right track. I mean, other than there's books and obviously things like that. What have you seen that's worked for people? Again,
going back to number one, the people that I've seen the most successful with getting out of debt are those that are committed to getting out of debt. It rises. It's as simple as that. Yeah, we can talk about strategies and the people that do it the best, and would you pay the highest credit card balance off, or the highest interest rate, or what do you do?
You got to be doing something.
And you just have to be doing something, and you have to be diligent enough about it to know that liability or that debt, what you're in the hole, is important enough to make sure that getting that done as quickly as possible will help secure your ability to save for the future.
Right. And you had said something that was interesting of looking at paying off the debt as a rate of return.
Absolutely.
Something like
yes. Yeah. So if your credit card's charging you 20%, you pay that credit card off. That is like getting a 20% rate of return.
Right.
So if you have a very good stockbroker that gets you 30%, then it makes more sense to keep the debt. But I don't know anybody who has that good of a stockbroker to guarantee a 20% rate of return, so pay off the debt.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
No, that's good. That's very cool. So the next one is pay yourself first. Now, there might be a little controversy with this one. I mean, not everybody agrees, or I shouldn't say everybody agrees, but this is not the way that most people think, I should say. And you brought this topic up, and there was a little bit of a debate about it. What does it mean to pay yourself first?
So a lot of what I hear and what I read about financial planning for families, new families, is, okay, I'm a responsible parent. I just had my baby boy, my baby girl. The first thing I'm going to do is get that Social Security card and go right down and establish a 529 plan. And the thing is, I mean, the thing is, it's fun to do that because you feel like, wow, I'm starting right I'm starting at the absolute, the beginning part of
it's going to accumulate as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
The sooner the better, right? Well, that's not always, in many cases, not the smartest thing to do. You, as the adults, need to pay yourself first. So get your current expenses met, establish the emergency fund, do your retirement planning, and when all that's done, pay off debt. And when all that's done, then consider some of these other things like a 529 plan, if that's the route.
And what is the 529 plan?
A 529 plan is simply a way to save for college in a tax-advantaged way.
Okay.
Like a 401k for college?
Similar. There's no tax benefit to it other than the growth is tax-free. So it's great to open it up to have the grandparents contribute to it. That is something that you should do immediately because you want to give them an opportunity to dump as much money in there as possible.
But as you were saying, like if you're going to put $100 a month or whatever the amount is, you're saying actually of using that $100 and pay off debt instead of doing the college fund.
I think when you think of everything in the bigger picture, if the idea is to save money, is to provide a college fund for your kids, then the 529 plan is a solution to that. There are many solutions to that, and there are some that are better than others.
What's a different scenario?
Well, one common strategy is to set up Roth IRAs for yourself as the mom and the dad, because you can put money in there and you can take the principal out without paying a penalty like you'd have to do in a traditional IRA. And the thing is when the kid gets 18 years old and you have this Roth IRA, well, if he goes to college, you can pull that money out and add that to his fund. It's not in his name, won't impact his ability to get financial aid. So like a 529 plan would. So you can do something like that.
So if you're looking to get financial aid potentially in the future, or if that's something that you're considering, you're saying that the 529 plan will actually inhibit, I should say.
It gets added to your assets, so it could have a deleterious effect. Absolutely. And so there are some ways to do that.
And why would a Roth IRA not?
Because the Roth IRA is owned by the parents, not owned by the child. So it's
so they look at the child's asset.
They look at.
Well, they look at your assets.
They do, but they don't impact. But when they do the calculation, then the 529 has a bigger impact than the Roths do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
No,
this is stuff we don't learn. We were talking about that. It's like all of this stuff, it's so important to, for your future, your family's future, the sort of stability and everything else. Yeah. And we simply do not learn this stuff. I mean,
that's true.
I consider myself a fairly educated guy.
Yeah.
I know things. I do this. I know
things.
I don't think I have enough information about all of this. I mean, I'm sitting there in this meetup. I'm like, yeah, I should probably do some of that. That's probably a good idea too. And I've kind of heard it, or this, and you're like, but a lot of it is a little bit overwhelming. So maybe that is part of the idea is you don't have to do it alone. You can hire somebody to do it. That's what you do. People come to. So what do people do? I mean, is it as simple as somebody finding a certified financial planner or somebody and just saying, hey, what should I do?
That's one route to go. But as I also mentioned in the group, you have to come to the table with a willingness to do something. This information is not rocket science. I did not open up the black book that nobody gets to see and come up with the information. This is readily available. Yeah, it's just a lot of times having somebody else coach you through it, hold you accountable, be an accountability partner is of benefit. But more than anything, it's just having it rise to the level of importance. Look,
Right.
you have a family, a new relationship. You're building a nest. You have to think about things a lot differently than just trying to get through college and not go to jail, right?
Was that what you were thinking about? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Even while I was in jail. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. It is, your life kind of changes. I mean, as the whole purpose of Dudes to Dads, it's just the idea of you're changing and evolving. It's how do you handle that, and that I think the financial aspect is a really, really big one. We talk about all these parenting techniques and relationship stuff and whatever, but money is a huge part of not only the problems in a relationship, but it also carries a lot of weight within the relationship.
And taking a thoughtful approach to this really, at the end of the day, makes the family feel a lot less stressed.
A little in control.
Because you're not, like you were saying, was like, oh, well, I got to think about all that stuff in my head. Well, and like what Mike was saying, well, you have envelopes, so just have the envelopes there, right? And then you can, instead of thinking about it and getting, because that adds stress, just go to the one place that where everything is and what you need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was one of the suggestions, was actually one of the guys takes, the monthly budget, separates everything into envelopes, and actually, him and his wife hand out envelopes, and they understand. They say, okay, here's the envelope of cash for this. Here's the envelope of cash for this.
Yeah.
And it's just all split out. So it's like, it's whatever's in the envelope is what you do.
That's a very sound way of doing things. It doesn't work for everybody, but it is a sound way to approach saving.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because it's
I like that.
it's using cash, but I guess part of using cash in general is that it's not as trackable, meaning you don't categorize it as well. Like hey, I'm at the store, I'm buying this or whatever. But the idea is if you have that predetermined in an envelope, that seems to solve that problem when you know that money is specifically allocated for it.
Well, then you see the money. Like
Right.
the thing is, like with credit and cards, for the longest time I stopped having any credit cards and no ATM cards. I paid everything in cash because I could see it leaving my hands, and when my wallet gets empty, I have no cash.
Right.
So therefore, I
And
shouldn't
it helped.
spend anymore, and it helped. Yeah. Now I'm a little more responsible. Responsible. I left
Cash
my
is
card.
king, right?
Yeah,
Cash
but that's
is-
the thing. Yeah, exactly. So if we go into a cashless society, I think it'd collapse because it's like everything's on credit.
the one thing that it doesn't do, though, is in a world where there's an app for everything, there's no app for the cash that you spend because
Right.
it's in your hand. So you
Yeah.
have to manually use the register, and you have to write the dollars that
That's
you
what I
spend.
mean. Yeah, as far as you have to be responsible enough to record it.
Sure.
And so that, for somebody who is a little bit more lazy, they may not do that. And then you're not tracking where the money is going. And so that is a good way of doing it, where you have an envelope or you have something where you can,
As an alternative, though, there are banks that allow you to open up accounts that are just like those envelopes, and then you can just transfer money into those accounts and handle it that way. So you
they're
can have
allocated
interesting.
towards
you
a
could,
certain budget.
Sure.
Like, oh, okay.
So you can just do that, and then you won't have the the archaic envelope system. At some point they probably will stop.
it's a lot of envelopes.
I gotta digress here for a little bit. Last year I went to a 11th grade retreat, and at the end of it, the 11th graders had to address an envelope to themselves. Over half of the 11th graders did not know how to address an envelope.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sad.
I can believe that.
They can't.
They don't learn that. I mean, it's
Where does my name? I mean, they really ask me like, how
address
does
a
it?
letter. I mean, my
Yeah.
kids are going to grow up not knowing. They're not,
Everything's email. Like, how many people write letters anymore? Like,
Well, we have them write thank you notes, but it doesn't have an address. Well, I guess it does on the the envelope, but
that's. I just don't.
maybe
It's
we
funny
should
to
teach
think
them how to
about
do an
that.
abacus too. I mean,
Hey, they still do the abacus.
is there such thing as a fax machine? I mean, it's like. Actually, I just saw a guy the other day, and he had his signature on his email, and it had his fax number, and I'm like,
What?
when is the last time somebody used a fax? I don't remember that. So anyway, it's just one of those things.
Modern technology.
So the last one, and I think this is probably the most significant, although they're all significant, is the contingency planning. And, this is not only just catastrophic events and things like that, but, just reality of when something happens, you have to be prepared. So what did you mean by that?
Yes. So really, what I'm talking about here is just buttoning down the hatch. The contingency planning falls. There's two categories. There's the insurance need, and then there's the estate planning need, and it's all going to be different for everybody. But there's a couple things that everybody should keep in mind. The first is, if you're working for an employer, the first thing that you should do is get some disability insurance. That the likelihood of you dying
You said from your employer,
or if you're not, if you're self-employed too, you can also get them. It doesn't matter if you're employed or not. It doesn't matter if you have a employer or not. You should get it anyway.
Okay.
And
this is long-term
disability insurance, absolutely, because the rationale behind that is you will become disabled before you will die. The likelihood of that happening.
So you're saying that's
greater.
the number one first in line type of insurance to get?
Sure, it's cheaper and it protects your income that comes in, which is exactly what.
So you just have to prove a certain steady flow of income year after year, or what do you have to do to do?
Well, if you work for an employer, they usually offer that as part of their benefits package. You just have to sign up for it. If you don't, if you're self-employed, you have to go through a little bit of a process with a carrier, and that's why it's important just to find one that understands your business, and then you can go through and figure that out. And just in general, it protects about 60% of your income.
And I mean,
up until you're
from
65.
From a cost standpoint, or obviously it depends on your salary.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it's a percentage of your salary or something like that. But is it? I mean, are we talking tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars? I mean, how?
Maybe $100 or $200 a month. It really depends. But if somebody's gonna hold a gun to me and ask me to give a ballpark,
but it's a range.
It's a range. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if you make 100,000, it's different than if you make 40,000. So I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
absolutely.
So.
Yeah, because they're insuring a different amount.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And then if something happens and you're unable to work, they then provide you a certain percentage.
That's right.
Obviously, the rate depends on how much of a percentage you want to have or something? Or?
Yeah, but it's in general 60% is really what most policies cover. And that's something that you want to do.
Which is interesting because that's sort of saying you could really live off 60% of what your income is.
Well,
yeah, but not really.
Not really. Yeah.
Where did that 40% go? Yeah.
Okay. So there's that piece of it, and I think that's something that people should look at.
And what's
immediately.
Okay? And then what was the second?
Yeah. So beyond that, then you get into life insurance, and the thing is you. Everybody in the household provides an economic benefit to the family, whether or not they work or not. So you really are looking at solving an issue for both. So a stay-at-home parent would still have an insurable.
Right, because if they're gone, there's still costs associated.
That's right.
With
then
that,
you're replacing it with a nanny or somebody else but the amount of insurance depends. So you have to be careful when you calculate that need. There's a lot of online calculators, and that can be misleading. So make sure when you go out and try to find the insurance that you're talking to somebody that can actually walk you through a more human process. And really what you're insuring for is, because you have kids, you are in your highest need for insurance, and you would just want to get something generally until they're no longer a dependent or out of your house. Right? College, for instance.
Right.
Wait, so you get your own contingency until they're out of the house? Is that what you just said?
You would just get a policy that insures for a period of, just say, 18 or 20 years or so. And then by that time, they'll be out of the house. Then your need for insurance in general would be lower, because you don't have another mouth to feed. They're not dependent upon you for income. Hopefully they're
self-sufficient.
I can tell you stories.
You've listened to the Dudes to Dads podcast your entire life, and you know everything there is to know about parenting.
Yep, that's true.
Bold statement.
Yep. And then there's some other things too. You have retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks at work. Make sure that you have your beneficiary designations properly notated on there. If you just got married, chances are your girlfriend at the time was not the primary beneficiary. Well, now you want her and probably on there as the primary beneficiary on your account. Additionally, I always recommend that you want to have at least one primary. You have one primary beneficiary and one contingent beneficiary, just in case the primary isn't living at the time. So you want to take that extra step to put somebody in.
And who's a good suggestion for that?
Oh, that just depends. Yeah, I'm always a good suggestion for that.
Wait,
just put me on.
Well, what about a company? What about a company?
Companies. Well, no, you wouldn't put a company as a benefit because they would get your assets. So you could do a charity, or you could do family members. Yeah. You could do something like that. Or if you only have a few people in your life, and if one or two people die and you don't care, then you could. Who cares what happens to it? You can just let it go to the state. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you had
that's-
also talked about like the trust idea.
Yeah, and that's the other part of this too, is that in terms of buttoning down the hatch, you want to get some basic estate plan documents in place. In California, it's advisable to consider looking at a trust just because of the hellacious probate process that we will go through here if you're in another state.
And what does that mean? It means if you die.
Yeah, so if you die and you don't have and money that is not specifically going to another person, so think about your retirement accounts.
Something.
Yeah, so like your house, for instance, right? Your checking account, for instance, or something like that. That might even be a bad example too. Your stock accounts or something like that. Maybe if it was only in your name, you didn't have your wife on it, and you die,
right.
then it would
your
go
wife would
to
have difficulty getting access to.
Well, ultimately it would go to her, but it would go through the California probate system first as they figure it all out.
And a lot of fees and things.
There's some fees, yeah. So the way that you bypass all that is simply by putting it in the name of the trust, and the trust tells how the assets go. It tells you who gets it, who administers it.
So as part of the trust, is the will part of the trust?
It's not part of the trust. It's part of your estate plan. So what you would have is a will that basically says everything goes to the trust. The trust is then drafted, and that tells the distribution of the assets there too. And for the attorneys out there, I'm speaking very generally here. I know there's always exceptions. I know
they're
going to
call, email us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. One of the things too I want to say is if you do have questions or comments, you can reach us or email us at podcast@dudestodads.com. If you got questions for Scott or such, we'll make sure that he's available to answer that. And I think we will certainly want to have him back as well, because there's a lot of information here. It's a lot to cover in a short amount of time, but my head's spinning right now. I'm trying to focus on the podcast, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, I've got to do all these things.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing along with the estate planning. More important than that is having your powers of attorney drafted. You want to make sure that in case something happens to you financially or medically, that you have the documents there to hand to the right people so that somebody could easily take over the responsibility. You don't want to have a hassle. Have a hassle there. So a general power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, and with kids, you need to have something that talks about guardianship.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get it all, Alan?
No, I have this recording, and I'll have it at home to listen to.
So you're just gonna keep playing it back.
I have to.
I'm gonna call Scott. Wait, you at 1642, you were mentioning this. What did you mean by that?
It's 3 a.m.
I'm a little slow on the pickup. I said I need to hear things multiple times, but that's the beauty of a podcast.
Yeah, we got it recorded.
You can have it recorded. It's forever ingrained, and we can just keep listening to it over and over again.
Absolutely.
So, well, Scott, thank you very much for coming in and talking with us.
Yeah.
This stuff is so important to parents. It's actually, like I said, it's important for everybody.
It is. I mean, speaking as a
even if you're a dude.
Yeah, even if you're a dude. Speaking on that tip, I now thinking about these things and estate planning and all that stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta set that up now.
And the truth is too, it doesn't really matter how much you have. I mean, it's all important.
It's all relative. The money that you have is yours.
Right.
That's.
I mean, people think, well, I don't make that much money. Well, I can't do that. But the truth is, it's just as important. No matter what amount of income you have or the assets that you have.
Sure.
You have to begin to protect everything.
You do, and now that you're in a relationship and you have a kid, this should start to bubble up a little bit, because there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more than just living in a dorm room and eating Mama Celeste pizza and just wondering if you're gonna make it to class the next day. Yeah,
I totally.
There's really lives. Flashback. Yeah, I mean, there's lives at stake here, and you want to be prudent in your decisions.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So with that, just want to say thank you to Scott. Thank you, Alan, as well. And another great podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Next time.
See ya.
See ya.